Hi everyone, my name is Natalie. So today I'm going to do something I do every year around this time of year, and that is to talk about Nonfiction November. So Nonfiction November is a readathon reading initiative that is run by a book olive. The gist of the readathon is basically to read more nonfiction than you would normally do, which could mean reading one nonfiction book in the month, or it could mean reading only nonfiction. It depends on what is normal for you. I will not make any specific number goals. I'll just be sort of prioritizing nonfiction titles, and there's always several that I want to get to. But today I wanted to talk about some nonfiction recommendations that I would recommend for you in general. All these books are books that I've enjoyed, but they also fit with this year's prompts for Nonfiction November. So I will leave the link to Olive's announcement video in the description below so you can hear about more of the specifics information regarding Nonfiction November. The first prompt I want to talk about today is industry. So of course with all of these word prompts you could interpret them in many ways. I'm just going to give you an idea of a few ways you could interpret them, that I have interpreted them. The first one I thought of for industry is The Eternal Season by Stephen Rutt. This is a nature nonfiction book talking about the season of summer. So he observes all of the natural world goings on. In doing so, he also notices a lot of the absences, a lot of the loss, and a lot of the things that isn't part of the landscapes anymore. And to a large degree, this is because of human industry. So either in terms of farming, factory farming, or climate change related human activity. Human industry is sort of a shadow running through this book. And I think in many ways it is a sad book because it is centrally about loss. But I feel like it has a hopeful tone as well. And I think the combination of those things makes this book quite valuable, I think, in how we approach the changes we're seeing in the natural world and how we adapt. The other thing that I thought of with industry is two books that both talk about sexual abuse, and we have Consent by Vanessa Springora and Black Box by Shiori Ito. Both of these books share certain things, not just in the sense that they work in the same field as they're perpetrators and they're telling their stories, but also that the perpetrators have a kind of power and status figure or position in the industry that plays into the relationship that they have with the women that have written these books. And both books, I think, is centrally about reclaiming the narrative. So with Consent by Vanessa Springora, she talks about being in a relationship with a man as a 13 or 14-year-old with a much older man who was a famous author, and it's sort of the literary world and how he wrote, for example, wrote about their relationship. It was a very public thing, and he had sort of created this version of her story that she only really got a chance to make her own and give her side of things with this book. But she does talk about sort of the industry related issue, especially I think the way that so many people didn't criticize this relationship, didn't see the issue with it, or didn't do anything about it, despite the very obvious difference in power in this relationship. With Black Box by Shiori Ito, she is a journalist and works in news media, both I think with particularly related to television, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And a lot of it is related to job opportunities and being taken advantage of in a situation where you're very dependent on other people. Next, we have the prompt for style. So, of course, there's many ways to interpret this, but I have chosen 2 books that in some way relate to art. So we have On Contemporary Art by Cesar Aira, and this was translated by Katherine Silver. This is a short book, basically just one essay, and I think there's a prologue and an afterword by other people. And Cesar Aira basically, he talks about the style of contemporary art and sort of the movement of contemporary art, what it means, how it differentiates itself from previous art periods. It talks about art in general and what is the purpose behind art, what is the difference between art and craft, why is contemporary art such a thing in comparison to historically with very clear sort of art periods that we have. What is it about these most recent decades that has just sort of created this timeless view on art. The other book I wanted to recommend for style is Queens of Animation by Natalia Holt. This was my favorite book of last year, and this book is talking about the women working in the Disney studio historically and what they've created, giving them credit that is long overdue. One of the things that I found really fun about this book, aside from the women's history side to the story, is that it also talks quite a lot about the technology development with the company and how the animation style and the animation process changed over the course of the 20th century as new technologies become available, and so the shift towards digital style of animation as well. Next, we have the prompt treatment. So like Olive, I think, pointed out for this, it's very easy to use things related to medicine with this. The first one I wanted to talk about is related to mental illness and psychiatry, which is probably my favorite when it comes to medicine-related nonfiction. So we have Inferno by Katherine Cho. This is talking about the author, so it's a memoir talking about the author experiencing postpartum psychosis. After she starts experiencing the psychosis, she is put into an involuntary treatment, and she narrates this experience of losing agency and losing control and power over herself and of her own life, that I think is such a valuable part of writing on mental illness and understanding mental illness and treatment of it. The other one I wanted to recommend for treatment is Written in Bone by Sue Black. So this book is written by a forensic anthropologist. So she basically talks about how different parts of the human body, the human skeleton, how they can be used for forensic research or for forensic work, what the particular bone parts can tell us about how someone died, who they were. The connection I made with the treatment is that it's her sort of in connection with her treatment of the bones and what she learns in having this communication in a way with the bones and what they tell her. Lastly, for the prompts this year for Nonfiction November is a collection. And so first I'm going to recommend 2 essay collections. The first one is Small Bodies of Water by Nina Mingy Powell. It is not just that it is a collection of essays, but it is also a collection of fragments and a collection of topics. So the essays themselves are quite fragmentary in style. Sometimes she uses list styles, sometimes she weaves together several different topics in the same essay. The topics range from everything from being biracial to learning your mother tongue or learning languages in general, to food and cooking and family, swimming, nature. Despite covering a lot of different topics, I think Nina Mingy Powell is able to sort of gather all of these various threads to make a beautiful weave. The other essay collection I wanted to talk about is Not to Read by Alejandro Zambra, and this was translated by McDowell. This is an essay collection talking about writing and books. So writing books and reading life. So some of the essays talk about specific writers. Sometimes it's almost like book reviews or book discussions. Some of them are related to his own writing and writing process, writing previous books, or writing marginalia, that kind of thing. And many of the essays, and my favorites usually, were the ones where he talked about reading life. So it would be things like creating his own personal library and sort of curating that and organizing it. He would talk about traveling with books and trying to choose which books to travel with, and all of the thought process that goes into that. One of the things that really also made this one stand out to me is Alejandro Zambra's humor. That is just really fun. It was just really fun to read this and engage with it and discuss it as well. So this is one of my favorites of this year, would strongly recommend. Lastly, I wanted to recommend Way Through the Woods by Litt Woon. So this book fits with the collection prompt, both in the sense of it is about mushroom picking, but also Litt Woon learns about mushroom species and learns to differentiate them, and in doing so, of course, she is collecting knowledge about mushrooms. So this book is partly about the mushroom picking and about her learning about mushrooms, learning about their context and sort of recognizing the climates and the situations where she can find them. This is also a grief memoir because it talks about her partner passing away and her dealing with the aftermath of that. I had read several mushroom related books before this one, but I still found that I learned a lot of new things, particularly when it comes to the cooking aspect of it and the eating aspect. That was just really fascinating. But this is a really passionate book, I feel like, on the topic. Those are all of the books that I wanted to specifically recommend for you for the Nonfiction November prompts this year. I would love to know if you've read any of these books, if you have any ideas of what you are planning to read this year, if you have any recommendations for me based on these recommendations or based on the prompts, I would love to know. I hope you're doing well and you're taking care of yourselves, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.